Greetings, YouTubians, and welcome back to Wayne Sharp World, where today I've got a comparison video for you guys. After I released the video of the Civivi Riffle, I had a viewer ask, hey, can you compare that with the Ortis? So I thought, okay, sure, I can do that. You know, I can't always make requests like that happen, but when I can, I like to oblige and make it happen because, you know, any type of comparison, especially when it's two knives that you're really considering, always makes for a lot better decision making when it comes to actually making the purchase of which knife you want to get. So with that said, here it is. Now, I'm not going to go through the specs and everything again. I'm going to link my reviews of each knife in the bottom of this video, so you guys can watch those if you want to check specs and stuff on the knife. This is going to be just kind of a in-hand comparison, looks, thickness, this, that, and the other. And I thought I'd also throw in this guy right here. This is the Badlands Vagabond that I just posted a review of yesterday. Because obviously, if I'm going to compare the Ortis with the Riffle, I got to have the Vagabond in there as well, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to set this up here real quick and talk primarily about these two knives for now. We have the Riffle, and we have the Ortis. So as you can see, as far in lengths, in terms of length, the Riffle is definitely longer, but not by a whole lot. It looks a little bigger than the Ortis than it actually really is. A lot of that has to do with the actual width of the knife. And as you can see, just kind of a little more of a broader shape. The Ortis is definitely more slender. It's more of a gentleman's knife, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, especially in the outfit it's in. But regardless, I think it just has a little more sleek lines. But the Riffle is, of course, no slouch in that category as well. That, again, all comes down to personal opinion. Personally, if the viewer that wanted this comparison, if you're asking me to pick one over the other, that's really hard. It really is. Right now at this point, man, I really don't know. This knife is much more fidgety than this knife, only because this cutout is much more versatile than this one. At least when it comes to me, I cannot Spidey flick the Ortis. I can't. I've tried and tried and tried. Cannot do it. But it flips like a dream. The flipping action is fantastic. But then on the Riffle, you have a really good flipping action, and you also have an extremely good fidget factor with this cutout there. So worth considering if you are someone who likes to really fidget with your knives. As far as the actual blade, pretty darn similar. I would say the thickness, I believe the thickness is really it looks the exact same. I mean, we're talking very, very, very minute difference if there is any, but I believe the thickness of the stock is the same, and the tip is actually also, let's get these a little closer here. The tips are also both very, very delicate, very slicey tips. I think the slicier tip may go to, it probably does go to the Ortis, but not by much. A lot of that has to do with the overall shape of the blade. I think I would give that to the Ortis. If you're talking aesthetics, they're both fantastic. They really do both look good. Handle thickness is pretty much on point. I would say the Riffle is ever so slightly thicker, and it definitely feels bigger in hand because you have that wider handle. That is for sure. You definitely feel a little more body in the hand when you're holding onto this knife as compared to the Ortis, which still feels pretty darn good. And like I said, I always love this choke up right here. When it comes to actual ergos, I do prefer the Ortis over the Riffle, but again, by pretty slim margins. If this didn't have the forward finger choil, I would go Riffle. But since this does not have the choil, I do have to go Ortis because I do think this feels just ever so slightly better in hand. The pocket clips are pretty much the exact same. They are the exact same, just minus the different coating. And as far as feel in hand, don't really feel any hot spots from the clip. Of course, you feel the clip because it's there. There's no getting around it, but not a hot spot. And then with the Ortis, pretty much the same. I think I do feel the ramp up here on the top of the clip a little more, But again, is it a hot spot? I would probably say no. It's just not bothering me or aggravating me enough to give it that title. It's not a title you ever want to give a knife, so I try to avoid that, and I try to not always let the potential hotspot of a pocket clip affect my full opinion, my full review, because there's so many people that I can't tell you how many times someone said, "Oh, I hate that clip, it's a horrible hotspot," and I'm like, "Oh, well, it doesn't bother me at all." And then I have some where it's like, "Oh, it's kind of bothering my hand," and people are like, "Are you kidding me? I barely feel it." So there's no point in getting too caught up into that. But as you can see, the Riffle is just an overall bigger knife. Not by much, but it is in pretty much every way slightly bigger, in length, in width, in thickness, all around, just a slightly bigger knife. And to be honest, like I said, I couldn't pick one right now. I couldn't definitively pick one. If I was dressing up and doing something classy and wanted to carry a Civivi, I'd go with the Ortis. If I wanted to just bring something more casual that would be fun to fidget with and that I know can handle anything that comes its way, I'd bring the Riffle. I also think the Ortis can handle just about anything that comes its way, but I do think the 14C28N steel is obviously better than this Chinese Damascus. So there's those two. I hope that helped the viewer that requested this. Like I said, though, if you're deciding between the two, you're going to be pretty hard-pressed to come up with a bad decision. Now, I do also want to add in, if you're talking about the FRN version of the Ortis versus this, I would go the Riffle in my Carta in a much better quality material setup than the 9CR and FRN option of the Ortis. That version of the Ortis, I'm not. I mean, it's a nice knife, it's a great knife, but I don't like FRN. So that's just me. I like the looks of this Damascus, but it's pretty obvious if you know anything about blade steels that a solid one steel, especially one of 14C28N, is always going to outperform that of any type of Chinese Damascus. So definitely going to go with the Riffle if you're comparing it to just the regular FRN Ortis. But again, if you're talking just a general carry, it's kind of hard to go wrong with either one. Now, we're going to set this aside real quick and bring in the Badlands Vagabond, where I had a lot of people comment yesterday in regards to my video, and they didn't quite agree with me on some points, and that's great. I love that kind of discussion. Some people said, well, what if they just put thumb studs on the Ortis and called it the Ortis with thumb studs or something like that, to where they're still kind of keeping it one and the same. You really can't do that either, because these are two completely different blades. You have a clip point or a Bowie style blade, and you have a drop point blade. So if you just took this cutout off and put thumb studs, you'd still have dramatically different blades. There's just really no getting around it. And again, we're just talking my personal opinion, but I just wish they would have changed something with these handles. They could have, like I said, I don't want to go back and beat a dead horse. But as you can see, these knives are, when it comes to the actual blade, they are completely different. 100% completely different blades. This is a much thinner grind or thinner edge on the Ortis, and a little thicker edge on the Badlands Vagabond, which again isn't the end of the world when you're still talking 20 thousandths versus, I don't even remember what this was. I'd have to go back and watch my video, but I do know this is significantly thinner than this one. But again, 20 thousandths to whatever this is still good. It's still going to handle any EDC purpose. As far as blade length, exactly the same. Did they maybe start out with the same blade and cut it into different shapes? They very well could have there, because if you look at the width and if you compare everything else, they could have done that. That wouldn't surprise me. But the end result of what you have are two completely 100% different blades in shape, in cutting geometry, in everything. So very different there. So you couldn't just put thumb studs on this and call it the same thing. You couldn't do that. But regardless, like I said, this is not a bad knife. I did not give this knife itself a negative review in performance or action or ergos. I was pretty positive about, I was very positive about action and ergos and all that stuff. I just simply didn't like the handle. So that was my only gripe with it, but I wanted to voice that because I felt strongly about it. But as you can see, comparing these two, they really are pretty much the same with just a different blade shape, thinner edge, and thumb studs. As far as the flipping action, I do consider these both pretty much. I mean, this is a slightly heavier blade, but you still get a really good action. You feel that extra weight in the blade when you deploy this one as compared to the Ortis, which is a thinner blade, mostly having to do with the grind, but it definitely flies out. I don't know if I'd say faster, but it just feels lighter. It definitely feels lighter when you're deploying the Ortis's blade compared to the Badlands Vagabond blade. So I hope that covered some stuff that maybe I missed or didn't clarify well enough in my review of this Badlands Vagabond. Again, it's a good knife. The quality's there. The action's there. I just don't like the same handle. That's literally it. But there you go, guys. I hope that did help the viewer that asked that, especially when they were referring to the Riffle. I hope that did help. As you can see, pretty obvious there, the size difference. Not very much, but dramatic blade differences, and the thickness and everything is, yeah, pretty much the same. Maybe, if anything, it probably is maybe a hair thicker on the Riffle, but both very solid pieces, feel good in hand, and no real complaints either way. I really do love both these knives. These are two of my favorite Civivis. So there you go, guys. I hope this helped. I hope you took something away from it. Let me know, do you like these? If you do, I can definitely make this happen more often. Like I've said before, you guys give me the best ideas, and I appreciate that. I always appreciate everyone's input. So let me know in the comments what you think there. Was this helpful? What other comparisons would you like to see? And if I have the knives, I will make it happen, because I'm finding that if one person wants it, odds are more people want it. And I'd be more than happy to bring that to you guys. So there you guys go. I hope you enjoyed this one. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And until the next one, I'm out.